Tim Fitzgerald on Twitter at Life of Fitz, part of GoPowerCat.com, covers K-State with us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Both David and Craig Smoak here today. Tim on his way into Dallas and Fort Worth, Arlington for the Big 12 Media Days. Tim, thanks for your time. Hope you've been doing well. What do you expect to hear from Brett Yormark tomorrow?
I mean, hopefully he's named me assistant commissioner for fun, but I don't think I'm going to hear that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I almost wonder if there isn't something coming, some kind of announcement, but who knows? I mean, maybe they were hoping for something and it didn't pan out with the Pac-12. We'll see. But I'm just anxious to kind of get, for lack of a better way to say it, the vibe off of him, see what he's about.
I'm going with Notre Dame joining the Big 12, Tim. How about that?
I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, there's a lot of natural rivalries here. A lot of schools they typically play. Now, look, at some point Notre Dame's got to do something, don't they? I mean, and I think that's what everyone's waiting on at this point. And I think Notre Dame might be the ACC's last great hope to be saved.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a hot topic, no doubt about it. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. And that plays, I guess, into, the Big 12 and expansion. I mean, here we are again, Texas and Oklahoma for perhaps the last time. I don't think anybody really truly knows when their last media days will be, other than if it keeps running for a couple more years. But just your thoughts on sort of where the conference sits now. Going to be introducing the new teams next year, so kind of the status quo, but seems like a very interesting year for the league. K-State certainly seems like a team that's on the upswing, got the new commissioner. Just your thoughts on the Big 12 entering 2022?
Well, 2022 is just going to be this weird. I feel like it's going to be a farewell tour, even if it's not. I think everyone would hope that it breaks clean next year, but guys, I got to admit something. I'm more excited about the future Big 12, the new 12, than I have been about this conference in a long time. And it just feels like there's a lot of equity, a lot of shared vision within this conference. Maybe that's just because we're rid of Texas. And Texas is like that hot girlfriend that is unmanageable, that you just can't. It's hard to break up, but once you do, you're like, hey, I feel better about myself now. That's kind of the way I feel about getting rid of Texas. Oklahoma, I'm going to miss a little bit. That goes back to the Big 8 days for me. But I feel like the schools now, in fact, I got a daily delivery about this up at our video at Go Power Cat. That the backbone of this conference are ag schools. And, or if you're not an ag school, at least you have a feeling of an understanding of the agricultural experience. And now they've brought in, more converted commuter schools that also have played, little brother to larger institutions for a lot of years and are growing out of that shadow, just like a lot of these Big 12 schools are. I think there's going to be a real feeling of community, even though this is going to be somewhat of a diverse conference, certainly in geography. I'm really excited about the future Big 12.
And to me, and Mac Rose has told us this, Tim, and we've had Gene Taylor on, we've had other ADs around the conference on as well. They feel like now when they walk in the room, everybody's at the same eye. Everyone's at like look at each other straight in the eye. And we get it. There's other schools and programs that can be that way. And the way things are set up, they can. But it does seem like that's why one of the things when all this went down with US and UCLA, there was still some simmering about, okay, what's going to happen? But the Big 12, to me, didn't blink. Now, I don't know what they're going to do in the future, but to me, I feel like they all are all in this as one, even if maybe it's hard to sometimes trust everybody.
Yeah, and, we got to be realistic here. If Oklahoma State gets an SEC offer, I don't think anyone in the conference is going to expect them to stay. I mean, that's just going to be the reality of college athletics going forward. If the Big Ten and SEC are going to be at their own level, it's going to be almost impossible to say no to that. But I also think it's going to take going beyond 20 schools in your conference to get to any of us in the Big 12. That's a simple reality. They're going to turn their attention to the ACC, and if that's not going to happen, I think they're just going to sit at 16 for a while. But I think this group will kind of stick together. And I think if, they get some good history here in the next year or two, showing that they can put up decent numbers in football, they'll get a pretty good TV contract too, and maybe even comparable or above what they're getting right now, which is absolutely not the talking points we heard 1 year ago when those two schools left the Big 12.
So, Tim, K-State coming off an 8-5 year. Chris Kleiman steadily building this thing, had the big win over LSU to close things out, brings Adrian Martinez in. I know there's been some other changes, but what's just sort of the feeling right now as the ball gets ready to kick off here in a few weeks surrounding, where Kleiman is with this program at this juncture?
Now, it's funny how things work out. If you look back at K-State's last regular season game last year, they just stunk it up at Texas, lost the game that was so winnable, and fans were really upset about it. But you had a change at offensive coordinator that grew out of that. And Colin Klein, the former quarterback, went to the bowl game and called the plays and looked amazing. The offense clicked. He got the job full-time. Now his recruiting ability has really set in, and they're having a great 23 class. There's a lot of optimism, a lot of forward momentum right now coming out of that win over LSU into this season. And the fact that K-State had 6 players, first team All Big 12, the most in the conference, really says something about where Chris Kleiman has kind of quietly been recruiting. That he's developed some players like Daniel Dike Uzama, who nobody really knew about. I mean, he came to K-State just totally unheralded and put on about 40 pounds, and now is a beast at defensive end. And it's a fun team to watch, and I think it'll be even more fun with Colin Klein as offensive coordinator, because I think we're going to see more diverse play calling. It'll be fun.
With Kleiman, is he more the Bill Snyder, I guess, philosophy and the way they play the game compared to what K-State's done in between?
Yeah, it's weird. There's some real similarities and some real differences from each other. Their personal styles are much different. Chris is, really a kind of an outgoing, social guy. Coach Snyder does stuff, but that's really not his preference. Kleiman's a defensive guy. Snyder's an offensive guy. But the way they want to manage the game is similar. Maybe Chris Kleiman doesn't want to go as slow as Bill Snyder did, but he does want to control the clock. And they want to walk down the pace if they get a nice lead on someone. But one of the emphases with Colin Klein moving into offensive coordinator is kind of pick up the pace in general on offense. But you're going to see a real meld here with Colin Klein coming out of that Snyder program and his philosophies on offense. How much they line up with Bill Snyder will be interesting to watch.
How much does Adrian Martinez, enhance expectations, or how much does he kind of create some excitement? I know he could be frustrating at times for Nebraska fans, but the talent was evident. What has he kind of brought spark-wise to Manhattan?
Well, the question sums it up. He's really talented. You can't question his talent, and you can't question the fact that he was really frustrating for Nebraska.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncertainty with him, and you come into the season, and I think we're going to find out if it was him or Nebraska. Mm-hmm. It was one of the two. Were they asking him to do things that didn't fit him, or asking him to do too much, or was it just Adrian Martinez is flawed in his decision-making and can't quite put the ball in the right place at the right time? So I think we'll find out pretty quickly, and I think K-State feels really positive about him. He is a great leader. There's no doubt about that, and they brought him in for a reason. They feel like with Colin Klein calling the plays and understanding how to use a good running quarterback that can also throw the ball, because that's what he was, I think they feel optimistic. They're going to cut down on his turnovers and put him in a more positive position. And let's be honest, having Deuce Vaughn at your side in the backfield got to help and take a little pressure.
Well, that was my last question for you, Tim, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow and this week at Big 12 Media Days in Arlington. Bijan Robinson's the Offensive Player of the Year. That's not a surprise. He's a dynamic player. We know last year, at the end, he was beaten up a little bit, and they weren't very good, and so they kind of shut him down. He is fantastic and a Heisman Trophy candidate. Why isn't Deuce Vaughn?
Well, I think it comes down to just the measurements. I mean, Bijan's the prototypical running back, and he's special. There's no doubt about that. But he's a Lamborghini, and Deuce is the Jeep. It's going to take you places where you didn't think you could go, and it's kind of fun to watch Deuce play. He's very versatile. He's very good in the passing game. Also, he's been the leading receiver for K-State many games. So Deuce is really good, and we expect this is probably his last season, even though he's a junior, because what more will he have to prove? But unless he's planning on growing 6 inches the next year, I think he is kind of a finished product after this season.
Tim, I know that most people, if you stop and do some shows like this one while you're at Media Days, a lot will ask about Martinez and obviously Deuce Vaughn and Chris Kleiman. But for somebody that's embedded, we know it's a little bit different when you're on the ground level, just like we'd probably ask Dave Aranda some different questions for most people. What is the thing you're most looking to learn or ask when it comes to Chris Kleiman and this football program when K-State gets their turn in Arlington?
Well, I'm curious if they even care about the fact that they had the most players in the Big 12 and that selections, first-team selections, and that contrasted with being picked fifth. I don't know that that's ever happened before, that a school had that many selections and then was picked for middle of the pack. I find that interesting. But he's so guarded right now with what he wants to say about the offensive side of the football. That's where my questions are, and that is where he's become Bill Snyder Jr. He is not showing his hand one bit, and we expect some differences in this offense with Colin Klein now that he's had a full off season to put things in. But I think the offense will be really enjoyable brand of football for college football fans to watch.
Where would you put them? Are you buying some of the Big 12 championship, appearance hype? There are some people that feel like they've got the talent to find themselves in that game. Where are you with expectations?
Well, look, we've been told it's all about the Jimmies and Joes for a long time. And the Jimmies and Joes this season, at least, are in Waco, Stillwater, and Manhattan. It's hard to believe. It's weird to believe, but I would have picked those three as my top three, probably in that order, with K-State third. And threw Oklahoma in there. Look, I'm a big believer in Brent Venables. I think he's a whale of a coach, but I'm not sure he's cut out to be a head coach. And this is going to be a really interesting situation for me to watch.
Hey, Tim, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. You had put up on Twitter that you have personally had to deal with some health issues at times and how you've beaten the clock. My older brother has been battling prostate cancer, and it's been really rad. Started chemo 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I wanted you to share your story to give people some hope, because I saw that and it kind of took my breath away, and shared that with my oldest brother, who's doing well, but still it's a constant battle.
First, give him my number if he wants to reach out. And I do a lot of that. I talk to a lot of folks. I just had a friend, former Kansas State quarterback Matt Miller, who played in 1995, was diagnosed before he was 50 and dead at 49 from prostate cancer, which is really troubling in itself, because they don't even want to test you until you're 50. And I was diagnosed at 53, turned out to be stage 4, which is not a good position to be in. And luckily they handled mine with intense radiation that came with a lot of wonderful side benefits. No superpowers, but a lot of things that don't work right anymore. And, it is what it is. You just take the battle in front of you. It's kind of like a football schedule. You might have a rival all 3 weeks down the road, but you better stay focused on what you got to accomplish on that day. And you're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. But you just kind of string them together as best you can. And you fight, and you pray, and you do everything. You ask for all the positive energy you can summon from all your friends and family.
Tim, thank you for that, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you a lot. We'll see you tomorrow. Can't wait to give you a hug.
Okay, boys.
All right, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, covers Kansas State.